What if everything you learned about the Cold War is wrong? Many people say the United States won, while others argue that there was no true winner. The debate continues even decades later, making the Cold War one of history's most controversial conflicts. The Cold War began after World War II as a global rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. Although the two superpowers never fought each other directly, they competed politically, economically, militarily, and ideologically. The world became divided into two major blocs, with the United States leading the Western capitalist countries and the Soviet Union leading the communist Eastern Bloc. Both sides attempted to expand their influence across Europe, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The rivalry led to the creation of military alliances such as NATO and the Warsaw Pact. Nuclear weapons played a major role, as both sides built massive arsenals capable of destroying each other. The fear of nuclear war caused decades of tension and uncertainty around the world. Several proxy wars emerged during this period, including conflicts in Korea, Vietnam, and Afghanistan. The space race also became an important part of the competition between the two superpowers. During the 1980s, the Soviet Union began experiencing serious economic difficulties and increasing internal unrest. Maintaining military competition with NATO placed enormous pressure on the Soviet economy. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev introduced reforms known as glasnost and perestroika in an attempt to save the system. Instead of strengthening the Soviet Union, these reforms accelerated political instability. In 1989, communist governments across Eastern Europe began collapsing. The fall of the Berlin Wall became one of the most powerful symbols marking the decline of Soviet influence. In 1991, the Soviet Union officially dissolved into 15 independent republics. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, the United States remained the world's only superpower. NATO survived and continued expanding after the end of the Cold War, strengthening Western influence in Europe. Supporters of the American position argue that these developments prove the United States won the Cold War. They point to the collapse of the Soviet Union, the spread of democracy in Eastern Europe, and the survival of NATO as major evidence. Others argue that there was no true winner because both sides spent enormous resources and the world remained unstable. Some historians believe the Cold War ended through negotiation and compromise rather than outright victory. There are also debates about whether NATO expansion after 1991 contributed to later tensions between Russia and the West. Despite these disagreements, the strongest historical evidence suggests that the United States and its allies emerged as the overall winners, mainly because the Soviet Union collapsed while the Western alliance and its institutions continued to exist.